Kia ora everyone, good morning and welcome to this webinar which is on weight gain after quitting smoking. As you all know, a very common topic and often a barrier for people quitting smoking in the first place. So we're going to cover a little bit of science today, and I'll try not to make it too confusing and just explain as we go along. So the first question is, why do people gain weight after they quit smoking? And there's probably a number of different reasons for this. First of all, you know that hunger or increased appetite is a tobacco withdrawal symptom. So when people quit smoking, they get hungry. And when you get hungry, you typically eat more. So there's definitely an increase in food consumption, particularly of sweet foods. And it's estimated that people eat around an additional 100 calories a day when they quit smoking. So you get hungry, you eat more, you increase your caloric consumption, which of course leads to weight gain.
Just on that, Hayden, with what 100 calorie increase when you stop smoking consumption, what would an average person eat in calories per day?
Well, that very much depends on who you ask. Some people would eat, men for example, might eat around 1,800 to 2,000 calories a day.
Okay.
Others would eat somewhere around 1,500 calories a day to sort of maintain a stable body weight. So it's very personal with what people are eating. Weight gain's complex. We used to think it was all about energy in versus energy out. So the more you eat, the less you exercise, you gain weight. But it's actually more complex than that. And calories just form one part of the bigger picture.
Okay.
Added to that, though, you've also got a drop in your basal metabolic rate. So that's just your standard metabolism, the energy that your body requires to breathe, for cells to function. That seems to drop a bit when you stop smoking as well. So you've now got the case where you're eating more calories, but actually less burning of that energy. So not only more in, but less used. And so that's another added component to weight gain in quitting smoking.
So those calories get stored as fat, yeah?
That's right. So the excess energy gets stored as fat. Yeah. I've just put something else in there that came up as I was reading the literature around this, that some people wondered maybe eating is a bit of a coping mechanism, and that a lot of smokers smoke for stress relief. And so this was just a thought that a number of smokers perhaps, when they stop smoking, needing something else as a coping mechanism and turn to eating. I don't know what the strength of this evidence is, but I'm sure some of you will relate to that with your clients. Now, I don't want to go into the actual neurophysiology here too much, but the main point about this slide is that nicotine has a direct effect in the center in the brain that's responsible for regulating food intake and body weight. So nicotine definitely has an action via nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, just like the ones you all know about in terms of addiction, but it acts on another part of the brain that regulates hunger essentially. And so when you smoke or get other sources of nicotine, then there is a reduction in food intake and body weight. So we know that smokers, for example, weigh less in general than people that have never smoked. And it's probably via this mechanism.
So they just don't get as hungry as people who don't smoke.
Pretty much, that seems to be it, but it also grant maybe that it's changing something in the body weight regulation as well. So it may not just be hunger, it may be some other mechanism by which the body sort of regulates energy expenditure. But the bottom line here is that absolutely nicotine has a role to play. But remember, there are other things in tobacco smoke as well, which may have an effect. Now, in terms of weight change over time, so this paper just showed this quite nicely about change in weight, and here you're seeing an increase in weight over time at different time points. So you can see within the first 3 months of quitting smoking, on average, people have gained, in this study at least, around 2 kilograms. Now you might say, well, that's not actually that much, but if you're already overweight, this can add quite a significant contribution to your overall body weight. And then if you follow people out to a year, it's around 4 kilograms. Some papers report higher than that. So I always think the range is probably somewhere between 4 and 7 kilograms over a year of quitting smoking. Not everyone, of course, gains weight. This is an average. So you'll have some people gaining less and some people gaining much more.
So that would be a real problem, 4 kilograms for our young people who's being slim is now seen as the outward sign of being healthy and good looking. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're already close to, let's say, a BMI of 30, and this would be enough to tip you over the edge into an unhealthy category, which you'll have your doctor on your back asking you about that. And this slide just illustrates the interaction between hunger and increased appetite and weight change over a year. So essentially here, you're looking at weight change, an increase in weight over a year, depending on whether you've got particularly bad hunger or no hunger at a 3-month visit. So 3 months after smoking, you're looking at increased appetite. And what this is showing you is a bit of a gradient. So if you're really struggling with hunger or increased appetite at this time point at 3 months, then you're more likely to gain weight or gain more weight over a year than if you had no hunger or increased appetite. Now, that should make perfect sense to you. But I think just translating this to a sort of clinical point of view, and this is again why we ask people about tobacco withdrawal symptoms, is that we might need to help people manage their hunger a little bit better if they're reporting sort of moderate to severe hunger in the early stages of a quit attempt. Grant, I was convinced you were going to have a question about this one.
Yeah, so you're going to explain how to do that conversation?
Yeah, and maybe I'll mention it now just in case I forget, but it's, hunger's an uncomfortable feeling. We all know what hunger feels like, and you don't feel quite right, you can't concentrate, you might even feel a little bit irritable until you eat. And in a way, it's very much like a craving for a cigarette. And so the idea here is to not completely starve yourself so the hunger becomes unbearable, but to try and find ways to satiate your hunger, to settle your hunger down, that doesn't have a whole lot of calories associated with it. Some people drink fizzy water, for example, and say that helps alleviate some of the hunger pains. Other people will reach for a vegetable and eat that. And obviously, gnawing on a piece of celery is, of course, much more healthy than gnawing on a chocolate bar. Now, I said before that smokers on average weigh less than never smokers, and this just illustrates this over a 10-year period. Now, I'll just explain what this means. So here are your smokers down here, and this is showing you BMI. Remember, sort of healthy BMI is, they say, under 25, overweight between 25 and 30, and 30 plus is obese or of a very unhealthy weight. But you can see here, people who smoke, and these are men on this side, are remaining stable at a lower body mass index, a lower BMI than people that have never smoked. So you can see here that sort of 1.5 kilogram difference between smokers and non-smokers. Former smokers are more like your never smokers in terms of their BMI. And here in the green line, you have people that have quit smoking and followed up over a 10-year period. So they're tracking away from their your smoker BMI heading towards a BMI of those who have never smoked or that are ex-smokers. So I guess I don't know whether this is any sort of consolation, but you're kind of returning to the body weight that you would have been if you'd never smoked.
Right.
I know it's probably not any consolation for people because weight gain is weight gain, but that seems to be what's happening. And in women, it seems to be much steeper. And over time, women are gaining weight across all categories, whether you're an ex-smoker, never smoker, current smoker. But you can see this sharp increase in people who are quitting smoking. But again, we're talking on average around about 1.5 kilograms there over this 10-year period.
Right. Okay.
So this is sort of showing you that although you might gain a bit in the first year, that sort of 4 to 7 kilograms, over time, things seem to even out a little bit. Okay, but, it is difficult to sort of sometimes communicate that because people are very worried about the immediate weight gain. Now, something else to just add to the mix here too, it seems that the more dependent you are on tobacco, and this is measured by a Fagerstrom test of nicotine dependence, then the more weight you gain when you quit. So again, it's very much linked into the whole nicotine effect here. If you've got someone with an FTND score of 10 are your really most highly dependent smokers. And so quitting, they seem to gain the most weight. And this is change in body mass index here, okay, versus your lighter smokers. So for those of you dealing with more dependent smokers, and unfortunately that's most of the people we see are more highly dependent, they're going to gain more weight. Now the question is, does it matter? Does the weight gain negate the benefits of quitting smoking? Well, the good news here is no, it doesn't. So here you just have a never smoker, and this is over an 8-year follow-up, and we're looking at here the risk of heart attack, that's MI, myocardial infarction, or stroke. Okay, and in a never smoker over an 8-year follow-up, this is their reduction compared to someone that continues to smoke. Okay, so we all know smoking's bad, but if you quit and you gain weight, you still have this risk reduction, and it's very similar to a never smoker. So you're still reducing your risk of having a heart attack, you're still reducing your risk of having a stroke, even if you gain weight. It actually looks like even if you gain weight, your benefits or reduced risk of stroke and heart attack are better than if you're a quitter who loses weight. I don't know why that is in this particular study. This was a study of Korean people, so that might be something that's particular to Asian populations. But the news here is that the weight you gain does not negate the overall benefits of quitting.
Wow.
At least in terms of heart attack and stroke.
That's good news.
It's good news, yeah. So we knew that, but it's good to see that's still the case. So what do we do about weight gain? Well, there's not a huge amount we can do that's absolutely perfect at helping people not gain weight when they quit smoking. I think talking about it and giving some reassurance that not everyone gains a whole lot of weight. You can tell people what the average is, but also don't forget about that longer term change, that sort of 10-year outlook where it's not as bad as we think it is. In terms of actual things you can do, getting more physically active, and we're sort of talking moderate to vigorous physical activity. So this would be a brisk walk for about 30 minutes a day would be helpful, but it needs to be sustained. So you need to be able to fit this into your daily activities. If you can walk a little bit of the way to work, then that would be really good. Or getting out at lunchtime to do some walking around the block if you can on a daily basis, at least 5 days of the week, that would be great. And similarly, some sustained dietary modifications. We're not talking here about going all out on low carb diet, but just some changes, for example, more green leafy vegetables in your diet, or more plant-based foods, more whole foods, something that you can keep on doing would be useful.
What exactly would you say to one of your clients who was worried about gaining weight, or when you would just talk to them about maybe modifying their diet a little bit?
Yeah, so I talk about modifying the diet, and I like to give people some varying options of how they do that. One might be, very simple stuff about eating more vegetables. I often say, eat more vegetables that grow above the ground, not under the ground. So that sort of leaves potatoes out of the question. But especially more green leafy vegetables, something that people think they can do. Another option would be just to reduce your portion sizes a little bit, so you don't have to make major changes with what you're eating, but just eat a little bit less. I think the key thing here, Grant, is that people need to do something that they can carry on doing.
Yeah, they need to understand it in really simple terms, rather than go on the paleo diet or.
That's not to say that I'd say to people that want to go on a paleo diet, don't go on a paleo diet. But I think it's about just saying, well, look, that will definitely help you lose some weight. But a lot of people find that it's not particularly sustainable. And so you'll need to still find some, you either need to go on the paleo diet. If you're going off and on, then you need to keep on doing that. But there are definitely no magic cures to the weight gain issue.
Because I've heard you talk to people and say, don't starve yourself, because starving yourself makes quitting much, much harder.
Yeah, and I'll show you some slides on that in just a minute. But the other thing we can all do is encourage people to continue with their smoking cessation medications, because we all know that NRT, Zyban, Champix, they all lessen post-cessation weight gain. And actually, Zyban, bupropion is better at reducing weight gain than Champix is. It's one of those benefits of using Zyban is less weight gain for at least whilst you take the medicine.
So for a highly dependent smoker who is really worried about quitting smoking, would using NRT products, nicotine products for a lot longer?
Yeah, you could definitely do that, and encourage people to use them for a bit longer will limit the amount of weight gained.
Right.
And that might help with quitting smoking, of course. Also might help with reducing the weight gain until they get all their other dietary and exercise habits in order. Now I'm just going to show you this sort of looks a bit busy. But this is a meta-analysis where the authors have actually plotted on a graph a whole lot of different medicine combinations. Now, the closer you get to this x-axis here is body weight change. So you want to be down this end of the graph, because that means lower weight gain. The other axis, the y-axis here, is success rate. So you want to be near the top of this graph if you're going to get the best chances of quitting smoking. So somewhere in this part of the graph will be the best. And what I've just pointed out a couple of things here. One is 42 milligrams of patches. So this is 2 full strength patches here. So it seems to be fairly good at lessening the weight gain, but still good at helping you quit smoking. This one here is a combination of 14 milligram patch and fluoxetine, which is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, often used for treating depression. We don't usually use this sort of combination, but I think in the future we might see more happening in this space, where we're starting to combine different products to get the best outcomes. But certainly many of us use 2 full strength patches, of course, and that might be useful at lessening weight gain. Over this side, we've got Zyban here, bupropion, and then varenicline out here. So varenicline is good at helping you quit smoking, not as good at helping you lessen the weight gain.
Right, okay, yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to mention vaping here, because some people do report vaping to help them keep their weight down. And these data are from the UK, and this is just reasons for vaping. And you can see there, somewhere in the middle, some people are reporting vaping helps keep their weight down. Now, does it help keep the weight down? Well, actually, it appears it does. So if I just show you this, this 12-month data here, this is weight gain here in people who have quit smoking, okay, but not using NRT or e-cigarettes, okay? So you can see the weight gain there of just over 3 kilograms. If you look at vaping, e-cigarette users only, their weight gain is not 0, but it's significantly less than those who quit without e-cigarettes. And then you've still got people that are smoking here as well. These are dual users, so e-cigarettes and smoking conventional cigarettes. Their weight gain is quite minimal. Okay, so it's interesting to see that, and Grant, this probably goes back to your question about, well, why not just use nicotine longer term? And I think this is what you're seeing here, is when you've got a nicotine source, a cleaner nicotine source longer term, then weight gain is less.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Now, just talking about diets, and this was a study of a low-carb diet versus a low-fat diet, and people who are overweight or obese and trying to quit smoking using varenicline. Now, first thing to point out here is that actually neither diet made any difference. Neither diet was better than the other at weight loss. Okay, so people still gained weight longer term. They lost it a little bit at the beginning, but still gained it later. But these are withdrawal symptoms, and this is one particular scale. The higher the number, the greater the withdrawal. And what you're seeing here is that those that used the low-carb diet had higher withdrawal symptoms. And this goes back to your point you made earlier, Grant, that actually starving yourself, maybe especially starving yourself of carbohydrates, might actually make your withdrawal symptoms just a little bit worse.
So what foods have a lot of carbohydrates in them?
Any of your starchy foods, so bread, anything with flour in it. Your potatoes have high starch foods, high carbohydrate. Rice also. So those are the things that you typically not see on a low carb diet.
With a lot of white food.
A lot of white food, yeah, exactly. That keeps it nice and simple.
Okay.
And I do think we need to set some realistic goals here. And this was just a study that was all done via Quitlines, and they had standard stop smoking counselling, plus they either got at the same time some weight loss counselling, or they had smoking cessation counselling and then weight loss counselling. And even so, there was absolutely no effect really of the weight loss counselling when you're trying to quit smoking. So the weight change was really, really tiny and really not significant. But what they did find in this study is that if you had the weight loss and smoking cessation intervention at the same time here, your quit rates at 6 months were lower than those that had focused on the quitting first and then the weight loss.
Wow.
So again, at least as at 6 months, it disappeared by 12 months, but you just be a little bit careful. And I don't think there's a hard and fast rule here, but if people are a little bit unsure, it may be better to focus on stopping smoking first, getting that sorted, keeping your medicines going, trying to make some sensible changes to your diet and physical activity, and then dealing with the weight loss afterwards.
So it's almost like dieting. When you're quitting, makes quitting harder.
I think it can do in some people, and there might be a whole lot of different reasons for that. It might be that, the carbohydrates that you crave when you quit smoking actually may be helpful in some way. Or it might be that just doing too hard things really depletes all of your mental energy, and it just, everything becomes a whole lot harder.
Right, yeah, okay, great.
So I think just to finish off, just remember weight gain's common. Over the first year, you can expect on average somewhere between 4 and 7 kilograms. There's no strong evidence for any particular intervention to reduce weight loss. So I would just give some very practical advice about healthy diet, aiming for at least 30 minutes of moderate physical activity each day, and above all else, get people to continue using their stop smoking medications, because that can lessen the weight gain for at least as long as they take it.
Okay, so last question. What about sugar in all of this? You know, people love drinking fizzy drinks. They love putting 3 or 4 teaspoons of sugar in their cup of tea and eating lollies and snacks and chocolate when they're quitting.
Yeah, well, sugar's a carbohydrate. That's the white stuff you mentioned earlier. And you know, there's some thought that, of course, sugar may have some rewarding potential as well, and maybe that's what people are after when they quit smoking. This need to almost replace the smoking. It would be wise as part of a healthy dietary advice to really try and cut back on the sugar as well.
So a similar reward in the same reward.
It's not exactly the same as nicotine or other drugs of dependence, but it has, at least we think that it might have the same overarching or the same overall effect of reward, especially when you're hungry, you eat something sweet, you feel good, you want to do it again.
Right, okay. Lay off the sugar.
Yeah, lay off the sugar, some good advice.
All right. Well, look, thank you very much. That was very informative. And we will see you next month, same bat time, same bat channel.
Great. Okay. See you later.
Yes, bye, Hayden. Thanks.
See you.
Bye.